All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to tackle a huge question, one that could honestly change how you think about everything from your workout routine to your diet. The question is, can we really trust sports science?
You know what I'm talking about, right? You're scrolling online and boom, there's some groundbreaking workout, a miracle supplement, a new biohack that promises to change your life. But have you ever stopped to think, hey, how solid is the science behind that claim? Like, what happens if another group of scientists tries to get the exact same result?
And look, this isn't just something for us internet skeptics to wonder about. Turns out, scientists themselves have been worried. For years now, there's been this kind of crisis of confidence brewing, especially in fields like sports science.
Yeah, this isn't some new, sudden panic. It's actually a concern that's been bubbling under the surface for a while. The thinking is that researchers are under so much pressure to publish something new and exciting, something that'll get headlines, that it might be leading to a body of research that's, well, a little shakier than we'd like to believe.
So, what were these warning signs? What were the clues that made researchers start to get worried? Let's dig into the red flags they started seeing in the published papers.
Okay, so the first huge clue is something called publication bias. Get this. A whopping 81% of all published studies in sports science show a positive, significant result. Now, that sounds great, right? But it's almost too good to be true. Real-world science is messy. It just doesn't work that way. This number suggests that all the studies where a new technique didn't work, well, they probably just never got published. They're sitting in a metaphorical file drawer somewhere, hidden from view.
And here's where it gets even more concerning. You've got that huge 81% number, all these exciting claims, but then you find out that less than 5% of those studies actually share their data so other scientists can check their work. I mean, without the data, you can't verify anything. It's exactly like a magician telling you they can do the impossible, but refusing to show you how the trick is done.
And the list of red flags goes on. You see a lot of studies with really small sample sizes, like just a handful of people, which can give you some pretty wonky results. Then there's stuff like cherry-picking the best data points, maybe misusing some of the stats. It all just adds up to a situation where you have to seriously question how reliable some of these findings are.
But okay, up to this point, these were all just clues, right? Red flags and educated guesses. So a huge team of scientists from all over the world decided, enough speculating, let's put this to the test. The ultimate test.
And I mean, this was a massive undertaking. Seriously, the first large-scale project of its kind in sports and exercise science. Think of them like a squad of scientific detectives, all coming together to launch this huge investigation into the state of their own field.
And their plan was super methodical. Here's how it worked. First, they picked out a bunch of important, influential studies from the top journals. Step 2, they found other expert labs around the world to rerun those exact experiments. Now, here's the key part. They made sure to use bigger groups of people this time, sometimes even double the original number, to make the results more powerful and reliable. And then, the final step was simple. Compare the new results to the old ones.
Now, they didn't make this easy. They set a really high bar for what counted as a success. For replication to pass the test, it had to do two things. One, it had to get a statistically significant result that pointed in the same direction as the original, and two, the size of that result, what scientists called the effect size, had to be pretty close to the original. So yeah, this was a tough, strict definition.
So, the big question. After all that work, this huge multi-year project, what did they find? Well, the result was, honestly, it was pretty shocking.
28%. Just let that sink in for a second. 28%.
Yep, only 28%. That means less than 1/3 of the studies they put to the test were successfully replicated. To flip that around, more than 70% of these published findings, well, they just didn't hold up when someone else tried to do them again.
And this chart really tells the whole story. Those orange lines, that's the effect size, the impact that the original studies claimed. And the blue lines, that's what the replications found. The pattern is just undeniable. The original findings were consistently, and I mean dramatically, bigger than what the follow-up studies found.
And this really gets to the heart of the matter, this idea of an inflated effect size. Think of it this way, and this is a great analogy. The original studies promised us a cannon, something powerful and game-changing. But when the replications came in, what they often found was a water pistol. So just how big was that drop-off? How much smaller were the effects in reality? Well, the number is pretty staggering. On average, the effect size fell by an incredible 75%. 75! So think about what that means. Even for the few studies that did replicate, the actual benefit you'd get in the real world is probably way, way smaller than what the original headline-grabbing study claimed.
Okay, look, I know this all sounds really bad, and it is a serious problem, but the point of this whole investigation and this explainer isn't to say science is broken or don't trust anyone, not at all. The goal is to understand why this is happening, so we can actually fix it.
And the big takeaway really isn't about individual scientists being dishonest or bad at their jobs. It's about a flawed system. The whole culture of science right now rewards flashy, new, exciting findings. That creates this massive incentive to find a positive result no matter what, even if the evidence behind it isn't super strong.
So the researchers who did this study, they're calling for a really fundamental shift in how we think about science. It shouldn't be about these one-off gotcha discoveries. Instead, they say the focus needs to be on the slow, steady buildup of evidence, looking at what many, many studies say over a long period of time.
And the good news is, there's a clear path to make things better. It really all comes down to making science more open and more rigorous. Things like making researchers register their study plan before they start, so they can't cherry-pick results later. Sharing all their data and code openly so anyone can check their work. And hey, maybe we should actually fund and value these replication studies instead of only chasing after the next big thing.
When you step back and look at it, this whole story isn't really about failure. It's actually a story about science doing what it's supposed to do, check its own work and correct itself. It's a powerful reminder that science isn't some fixed book of facts. It's a messy, human, ongoing process of slowly, painstakingly getting closer to the truth. And that process is something worth believing in.